Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense ship Valiant. His hands gripped the metal rail in front of him as the alarm systems began to sound. The red lights flashed across the control panels, and every crew member turned to look at their stations with sudden attention. "What is that?" Jake asked, his voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Amy Carter pressed her fingers against her headset and listened carefully. Her face changed from confusion to concern in just a few seconds. She looked up at the captain with wide eyes. "Sir, we are picking up a distress signal. It is coming from far away, but I can hear it clearly now." The bridge fell silent except for the crackling sound coming through the speakers. Then a voice broke through, speaking in broken words that were hard to understand. The voice sounded afraid and desperate. "This is Kelrathi Colony Ship Sanctuary. We are under attack. Fraxel raiders are destroying our shields. We need help. Please, anyone who can hear this. We are dying." Jake felt his stomach tighten. The Kelrathi were good people. They were peaceful aliens who had been the first to treat humans with kindness. When Earth joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago, most other alien species had looked at humans with fear and distrust. They called humans Deathworlders because Earth was a dangerous planet with heavy gravity, violent weather, and deadly animals. But the Kelrathi had been different. They had voted to give humans equal rights. They had opened trade routes with Earth when no one else would. "Where is the signal coming from?" Jake asked. Amy checked her screen and typed quickly on her keyboard. "The Outer Rim, Sector 7-9. It is very far from here, sir." Commander Ben Hayes, who was sitting at the navigation station, ran the numbers through his computer. He looked at the results and shook his head slowly. "Captain, any Galactic Council fleet would need at least 3 days to reach that location, even at their fastest speed." Jake already knew what he was about to ask, but he needed to hear it anyway. "How long would it take us?" Ben looked at his screen again and then met Jake's eyes. 18 hours, sir. But we would have to push our engines way beyond their safety limits. The ship was not built to go that fast. Jake did not hesitate. He had made his decision the moment he heard the fear in that Kelrathi voice. The Kelrathi had stood beside humanity when others wanted to keep humans away from the rest of the galaxy. They had argued that humans deserved a chance, that being from a dangerous world did not make humans into monsters. Now those same Kelrathi were calling for help, and Jake was not going to let them die. Ben set a course for those coordinates. "Push the engines as hard as they can go. I do not care if we have to rebuild the whole ship when this is over." "Yes, sir," Ben replied, and his fingers began flying across his controls. Jake pressed the communication button on his chair. "This is Captain Morrison to all crew members. Go to battle stations immediately. We have friends who need our help, and we are not going to let them down. Prepare for high-speed travel and possible combat. Morrison out." All around the ship, crew members ran to their positions. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Danny Price started preparing the systems for the dangerous journey ahead. In the weapons bay, gunners checked their ammunition and targeting systems. In the medical bay, Dr. Helen Grant began setting up beds and equipment for wounded people. The Valiant began to move. The engines roared louder than they ever had before. The ship shook as it pushed through space faster and faster. Inside the bridge, Jake could feel the vibration through the floor. He knew this was hard on the ship, but there was no other choice. "Amy, send out a message on all human military channels. Tell every Earth ship in range what is happening. We might need backup." Amy nodded and began typing the message. Within minutes, the call went out across human space. It told other ships about the Kelrathi distress signal and the Vraxil attack. It asked for any available ships to come and help. Jake watched the stars stretch into long lines on the view screen as the Valiant went faster than it was designed to travel. He thought about the Vraxil raiders. They were known across the galaxy as cruel pirates who stole and killed without mercy. They had 4 arms and were built for fighting. Their ships carried heavy weapons and thick armor. They took prisoners and sold them as slaves. They destroyed anyone who got in their way. The Vraxil had made a terrible mistake this time. They had chosen to attack the one alien species that humans actually cared about. They were about to learn why so many aliens were afraid of humans. They were about to discover what happened when you hurt the friends of a Deathworlder species. Ben spoke from his station, breaking Jake's thoughts. "Captain, we are now traveling at 140% of our maximum recommended speed. The engines are holding, but Chief Price reports that the temperature is climbing fast. Tell Danny to do whatever he needs to do to keep us moving. We cannot slow down." The minutes turned into hours. The Valiant continued to race through space, its engine screaming with effort. Jake remained on the bridge the entire time, refusing to rest. He drank coffee and watched the screens, counting down the time until they would reach the Kilrathi. Then something unexpected happened. Amy looked up from her station with surprise on her face. "Captain, I am receiving responses to our message. Multiple human ships are changing course to join us." "How many ships?" Jake asked. Amy listened to her headset and checked her screen. "So far I count 12 military vessels. But sir, there are also civilian ships responding. Freighters, mining ships, even a research vessel. They all say they are coming to help." Jake felt a wave of emotion that he quickly pushed down. This was humanity at its best. When the call went out that friends needed help, everyone answered. It did not matter if you were military or civilian, rich or poor. If someone needed help, you gave it. Send a message back to all responding ships. Tell them to converge on Sector 7-9. Tell them we are going to save the Kilrathi no matter what it takes. The bridge crew worked with focused determination. They all knew what was at stake. The Kilrathi had shown humanity kindness when others had not. Now it was time to repay that kindness. Jake looked at the timer on his screen. 16 hours and 23 minutes until they reached the sanctuary. 16 hours until they would face 15 Vraxel warships with one Earth vessel. The odds were bad, but Jake did not care about odds. He cared about doing what was right. The Vraxel thought they were attacking a helpless colony ship with no one to protect it. They thought they could raid and kill and leave before anyone could stop them. They were wrong. Humanity was coming and they were bringing everything they had. The Valiant flew through the darkness of space, its engines burning bright. Behind it, across the vast distances between stars, other human ships turned and began their own journeys to the same destination. Some were large military cruisers. Others were small civilian vessels with makeshift weapons. But they were all heading to the same place, united by one simple idea. The Kilrathi needed help. Humanity would answer. Admiral Karen Phillips was reading reports in her quarters when the door suddenly opened. She looked up, ready to be angry at whoever had entered without knocking, but when she saw Lieutenant Commander Chris Bennett's face, she knew something serious had happened. "Admiral, you need to hear this right now," Chris said, his voice tight with urgency. He played 2 recordings. The first was the Kilrathi distress signal, full of static and fear. The second was Captain Morrison's message to all human ships in range. Karen listened to both recordings without saying a word. Her face remained calm, but her mind was already working through what needed to be done. When the recordings ended, Karen stood up from her desk. "How many ships can we get there?" Chris had already checked the numbers. "The Thunderchild, the Ironclad, and the Stormbreaker can arrive in 20 hours if we push the engines hard. The Nightfall and the Warhammer are about 3 hours behind those. Get all of them moving now," Karen ordered, already walking toward the door, "and send a message to Fleet Command. I want every ship that can reach Sector 7-9 within 2 days to go there immediately." Chris followed her into the corridor, walking fast to keep up. "Admiral, that would be almost 40 ships. If we send that many vessels to the outer rim, it will leave several sectors without proper defense." Karen stopped walking and turned to face her second-in-command. Her eyes were hard and determined. "Listen to me, Commander. The Kilrathi were the only species that stood up for us when the rest of the galaxy wanted to treat us like dangerous animals. They voted against every law that would have restricted where humans could go and what humans could do. They opened their markets to us when no one else would even talk to us. If we do not help them now, then we prove that every alien who is afraid of us is right to be afraid." Chris nodded quickly. "I understand, ma'am. I will send the orders right away." Karen continued walking toward the bridge of her flagship, the Thunderchild. The ship was huge, one of the largest vessels in Earth's fleet. It carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon and enough armor to survive almost anything. As she walked, crew members saw her expression and knew that something important was happening. They hurried to their stations without being told. When Karen reached the bridge, she went straight to the captain's chair and sat down. "Navigation, set course for Sector 7-9, Outer Rim. Maximum speed. Engineering. I need every bit of power you can give me." The Thunderchild's engines came to life with a deep rumbling sound that could be felt through the entire ship. The massive vessel began to move, slowly at first, then faster and faster until it was racing through space at speeds that would have made most alien species uncomfortable. Karen opened a communication channel to the other ships in her immediate fleet. "This is Admiral Phillips to all vessels. We have received a distress call from Kelrathi civilians under attack by Vraxil raiders. We are going to help them. I do not care what regulations say about entering the Outer Rim without council approval. I do not care about diplomatic consequences. The Kelrathi stood by us when we needed them. Now we stand by them. Phillips out. Across human-controlled space, the message continued to spread. Ship captains read the reports and made their decisions. Almost all of them made the same choice. Captain Lisa Monroe was patrolling the border of Sector 12 when she received the alert. She was supposed to stay on patrol for another week, but when she read about the Kelrathi situation, she did not even hesitate. She turned her destroyer, the Fury, toward the Outer Rim and increased speed. Commander Paul Stewart was escorting a group of transport ships when the message reached him. The transports were carrying important supplies, and he had been ordered to stay with them until they reached their destination. But Paul knew that supplies could wait. Lives could not. He told the transports to continue on their own and turned his heavy cruiser, the Relentless, toward Sector 7-9. Even civilian ships were responding. Captain Vincent Cole was hauling mining equipment in his freighter when he heard about the attack. His ship was not built for combat, but it had some defensive weapons. More importantly, Vincent remembered how Kelrathi traders had helped him when his ship had broken down 2 years ago. They had given him parts and supplies without asking for payment. Now it was his turn to help them. Dr. Gregory Fisher was even farther away, conducting research on stellar formations near the edge of explored space. His research vessel, the Horizon, had only light weapons and was not designed for combat at all. But Gregory had worked with Kelrathi scientists for years. They had become his friends. He ordered his crew to prepare the ship for high-speed travel and set course for the Outer Rim. All across human space, similar scenes were happening. Ship after ship turned toward Sector 7-9. Some were military vessels with powerful weapons and trained crews. Others were civilian ships with improvised weapons and volunteers who had never seen combat. But they were all going to the same place for the same reason. Karen watched her displays as more and more ships checked in. The numbers kept growing. Destroyers, cruisers, frigates, freighters, and even a few private yachts owned by wealthy humans who wanted to help. It was an amazing sight. Admiral, Chris said quietly, standing beside her chair. The Council is going to be very angry about this. We are moving a significant military force into neutral territory without permission. Let them be angry, Karen replied. The Council talks about peace and cooperation, but where are they right now? Where are their ships? The Kelrathi have been sending distress signals for hours, and no Council vessel has even started moving toward them. We are not going to sit here and follow rules while good people die. Chris smiled slightly. I agree, ma'am. I just wanted to make sure you knew what we were getting into. I know exactly what we are getting into. We are going to fight Vraxil raiders, probably suffer damage to our ships and definitely make the Galactic Council upset with us. And I am fine with all of that. The hours passed. The human fleet continued to grow as more ships joined. Karen remained on the bridge, coordinating the converging vessels and planning the battle to come. She studied everything she could find about Vraxil tactics and weapons. She read reports from previous encounters with Vraxil raiders. She wanted to be ready. Lieutenant Sarah Cooper, who was working at the tactical station, spoke up. Admiral, based on the last transmission from the Kelrathi ship, they are facing at least 15 Vraxil warships. Even with all the ships we are bringing, we will only have about 30 vessels when the battle starts. Numbers are not everything, Karen said. The Vraxil are used to fighting species that retreat when they take damage. They are used to enemies that follow predictable patterns. They have never fought humans before. What makes you think we can win, ma'am? Karen looked at the young lieutenant. Because we are not fighting for territory or resources. We are fighting for friends. That makes all the difference. The Vraxil are raiders who attack the weak. They do not understand loyalty. They do not understand friendship. When we hit them, they are going to learn what happens when you attack someone that humanity cares about. More reports came in. Captain Morrison's ship, the Valiant, was still ahead of everyone else, pushing its engines to the breaking point. Chief Engineer Danny Price was performing miracles just to keep the ship moving. Karen sent a message to Morrison, telling him that backup was coming. She told him not to engage the Vraxil alone if he could avoid it. But she knew that Morrison would do whatever he had to do to protect the Kelrathi, even if it meant fighting impossible odds. Karen understood that feeling. It was part of being human, Humans did not abandon their friends. They did not calculate odds and decide that helping was too expensive or too dangerous. They just helped. It was one of the things that made other aliens nervous about humans, but it was also one of the things that made humans good allies. The Thunderchild continued to race through space. Behind it came dozens of other ships all heading toward the same point. They were a fleet united by purpose, military ships and civilian ships, large vessels and small ones all coming together to answer a call for help. Karen thought about what the Kelrathi must be feeling right now. They had sent out a distress signal, probably not expecting anyone to come in time. Most species in the galaxy would calculate the risks and decide that helping was not worth the cost. But humans were different. The Kelrathi were about to learn just how different. How long until we reach Sector 7-9? Karen asked. 19 hours and 16 minutes, Admiral, the navigation officer replied. Karen nodded. 19 hours. That was how long the Kelrathi needed to survive. After that, humanity would arrive, and the Vraxil raiders would face something they had never encountered before. They would face an entire species that had decided they were the enemy. The word continued to spread through human space. On Earth, Fleet Command was both amazed and proud at how quickly the fleet had mobilized. On human colonies throughout the galaxy, people watched news feeds and cheered for their ships. Everyone understood what was happening. This was not just a military operation. This was humanity making a statement to the entire galaxy. This was humanity showing everyone what it meant to be a true friend. The Valiant shook violently as it pushed through space at speeds that should have been impossible. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Danny Price watched his control screens with growing worry. Every gauge was showing red warnings. The temperature readings were climbing higher and higher. The engine systems were screaming in protest. "Come on, hold together," Danny muttered to himself, adjusting controls as fast as he could. His hands moved across the panels, redirecting power and managing coolant systems that were working far beyond their design limits. Around him, his engineering team worked frantically. They were doing emergency repairs on systems that were breaking down from the extreme stress. One crew member was welding a cracked coolant pipe. Another was replacing burned-out circuit boards. Everyone knew that if the engines failed now, they would never reach the Kelrathi in time. "Chief, the port engine is running at 200% capacity," Petty Officer Kevin Turner called out. "The temperature is critical." Danny moved to that station and checked the readings himself. It was bad, but not impossible. "Divert coolant from the starboard cargo bay cooling system. We do not need to keep supplies cold right now. I need that coolant for the engines." "Yes, sir." On the bridge, Captain Jake Morrison received constant updates about the ship's condition. Every report told him the same thing. The Valiant was being pushed too hard. But every report also said the ship was still flying, still moving, still racing toward the Kelrathi who needed help. Lieutenant Amy Carter turned from her communication station with new information. "Captain, we are receiving messages from across human space. The response has been bigger than we expected." "Show me," Jake said. Amy put the information on the main view screen. Jake felt his chest tighten as he saw the numbers. 37 ships were now confirmed as heading towards Sector 7-9. Some were already close. Others were still far away, but coming as fast as they could. It was an incredible response. The screen changed to show a communication request from Admiral Phillips. Jake accepted it immediately. Karen Phillips appeared on the screen sitting in the command chair of the Thunderchild. "Captain Morrison, I am 20 minutes behind your position with 3 heavy cruisers. How is your ship doing?" "We will make it, Admiral," Jake replied, though he was not completely certain of that. "Chief Price might want to kill me when this is over, but we will make it." Karen's expression was serious. "Our sensors are showing at least 15 Vraxil warships in that system. You cannot fight them alone. Wait for backup if you can." "I will do what I can, Admiral. But if the Kelrathi are dying when I arrive, I'm not going to sit back and watch." Karen nodded. She had expected that answer. "Understood. Just try to stay alive until we get there." Phillips out, the screen went dark. Jake turned to Commander Ben Hayes at the navigation station. "What is the current status of the Kelrathi ship?" Ben pulled up the latest data from the distress signal. His face showed concern. "Captain, their shields are down to 8%. They have taken heavy damage to their life support systems. According to their last transmission, they have maybe 5 hours of breathable air left." Jake looked at the timer on his screen. 14 hours until they reached the sanctuary. The math was terrible. Even if everything went perfectly, they would arrive long after the Kelrathi ran out of air. Keep trying to raise them on communications, Jake ordered. Tell them to shut down all non-essential systems to conserve power and air. Tell them help is coming. But Jake knew the real message he wanted to send was simpler. He wanted to tell them to hang on. He wanted to tell them that humanity had not forgotten what they did for Earth. He wanted to tell them that friends do not abandon friends. Lieutenant Kelly Patterson at the Tactical Weapons Station spoke up. Sir, I am detecting more ship signatures on long-range sensors. They are human vessels, but they are not military. What kind of ships? Civilian freighters, sir. Also some mining vessels and what looks like a passenger transport. They are all armed, and they are all heading for the same coordinates we are. Jake felt a surge of pride. When humans heard that friends needed help, everyone came. It did not matter if you were a soldier or a merchant or a miner. You came because it was the right thing to do. Send them a message, Jake said. Tell them what we are flying into. Make sure they know this is going to be a real fight against Vraxel raiders. Give them a chance to turn back. Kelly sent the message and waited for responses. One by one, the civilian ships replied. None of them turned back. A freighter captain named Vincent Cole sent a simple response that summed up what they all felt. The Kelrathi helped me when I needed it. Now I help them. The hours crawled by slowly. The Valiant continued its desperate race through space. In the engine room, Danny and his team fought to keep everything running. They had already replaced a dozen major components. The coolant system had been rebuilt twice. The power distribution network had been rerouted so many times that Danny had lost track of the original design. Chief, we have a problem, one of his engineers called out. The starboard engine is showing stress fractures in the main housing. Danny rushed over and looked at the diagnostic display. The fractures were small but growing. If they continued to push the engine this hard, it might tear itself apart. But if they slowed down, the Kelrathi would die. Can you reinforce it? Danny asked. Not while the engine is running at this power level. We would need to reduce speed by at least 40%. Danny thought for a moment. Then he shook his head. Keep it running. If it explodes, but we are not slowing down. Back on the bridge, Jake received more bad news. The Kelrathi ship had sent another transmission. Their shields were now completely gone. Vraxel weapons were hitting their hull directly. They were taking casualties. The fear in their voices was clear even through the translation software. Can we go any faster? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. No, sir, Ben replied. We are already pushing the ship beyond what it can handle. Any more speed and we will tear apart before we get there. Jake slammed his fist on the arm of his chair. It was not enough. They were going as fast as they could, and it still was not enough. The Kelrathi were going to die unless something changed. Then Amy spoke up from her station. Captain, I am receiving a transmission from the Kelrathi ship. They say they have sealed their remaining crew in the emergency shelters. They have enough air for another 3 hours, but they cannot defend themselves anymore. All their weapons are offline. 3 hours. Jake looked at the timer again. Still 12 hours away. Keep that channel open, Jake ordered. I want them to know we are coming. I want them to hear us even if they cannot respond. Amy nodded and adjusted her controls. Then Jake opened a ship-wide communication channel. His voice went to every speaker on the Valiant. This is the captain. I know we are asking a lot from this ship and from all of you. I know we are pushing harder than we should. But there are 3,000 Kelrathi civilians who are going to die if we do not reach them in time. These are the same people who stood up for humanity when others wanted to keep us isolated. These are the people who believed we deserved a chance. Now they need us to believe in them. So we are going to keep flying, and we are going to reach them, and we are going to save them, because that is what humans do. We protect our friends. Morrison out. In the engine room, Danny heard the captain's words and nodded to himself. He turned to his team. You heard the captain. Keep everything running no matter what. We do not stop until we get there. The engineers worked even harder, doing impossible things to keep the engines from exploding. They jury-rigged solutions that would make their instructors ashamed. They bypassed safety systems and ignored warning alarms, but they kept the engines running. On the bridge, Jake watched the timer count down. Every minute felt like an hour. Every hour felt like a day. Behind the Valiant, Admiral Phillips and her fleet were racing to catch up. Behind them, dozens more human ships were converging on the same point in space. The Vraxel raiders had no idea what was coming. They thought they were attacking a helpless colony ship with no defenders. They thought they could take their time, kill everyone aboard, steal whatever they wanted, and leave before anyone could stop them. They were wrong. Humanity was coming. The full force of a Deathworlder species was racing through space toward them, pushing ships beyond their limits, risking everything to save friends who needed help. Jake looked at the view screen, where the stars streamed past in long lines of light. Somewhere out there in the darkness, the Kelrathi were fighting to survive. Somewhere out there, the Vraxil were destroying everything they could. And somewhere between here and there, dozens of human ships were racing to change the outcome of this story. 10 hours until we reach Sector 7-9, Ben announced. Jake nodded. 10 hours. The Kelrathi just needed to survive 10 more hours. Then they would see what humans could do when you hurt their friends. The Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the sanctuary system, and what Jake Morrison saw made his blood run cold. The Kelrathi colony ship hung in space like a dying creature. Huge sections of its hull were torn open. Atmosphere was streaming out into the vacuum, forming clouds of frozen crystals that glittered in the light of the distant sun. Around the wounded ship, 15 Vraxil warships circled like predators. They were taking their time, firing their weapons slowly and deliberately. They were not trying to destroy the colony ship quickly. They were enjoying this. They were making it last. Jake's hands tightened on his chair. All weapons open fire. Target the ships closest to the sanctuary. The Valiant's railguns spoke with thunder. Metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds and shot across the empty space. 2 Vraxil ships exploded before their crews even knew they were under attack. Debris scattered in all directions as the ships were torn apart. The remaining 13 Vraxil vessels turned to face this new threat. Their commanders probably thought this was just one Galactic Council patrol ship. They had no idea what was really coming for them. Jake had no intention of fighting a normal battle. Ben, take us straight through their formation. Do not slow down. Do not stop. We are going to hit them hard and fast. Sir, if we do that, we might collide with their ships. I am counting on it, Jake replied coldly. The Valiant charged forward like an ancient warrior running into battle. Its weapons fired continuously, hitting Vraxil ships again and again. The human vessel's thick armor plating, designed to withstand the harsh conditions of Earth, absorbed hits that would have crippled most alien ships. Brace for impact, Ben shouted as the Valiant closed on a Vraxil raider that was too slow to move out of the way. The human ship rammed through the Vraxil vessel like a hammer through glass. The reinforced prow of the Valiant cut the enemy ship in half. Explosions bloomed on both sides as the 2 vessels separated. Damage report, Jake called out. Forward armor is damaged but holding, Kelly reported. We lost some hull plating, but all major systems are still working. The Vraxil were starting to realize that this was not a normal council ship. Normal ships did not charge straight into enemy formations. Normal ships did not ram other vessels. Normal ships fought carefully and retreated when damaged. This ship was doing none of those things. Then the Thunderchild arrived. Admiral Karen Phillips' flagship dropped into normal space with the Ironclad and the Stormbreaker right beside it. The 3 massive human warships entered the battle like thunderstorms, their weapons blazing with fury. All ships protect the sanctuary, Karen ordered over the fleet channel. Do not let a single Vraxil shot reach that colony ship. The human ships moved with an aggression that shocked the Vraxil. They closed to ranges that most species considered suicidal. They fired massive broadsides that lit up space with weapons fire. They positioned themselves between the Vraxil and their target, using their own hulls as shields. The Vraxil began to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. These were not normal council species. These were humans. These were Deathworlders who had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. These were creatures whose entire history was written in war and survival, and now they were fighting to protect their friends. More human ships continued to arrive. The Fury, commanded by Captain Lisa Monroe, shot into the battle at full speed. The small destroyer was fast and agile. It darted between larger ships, targeting Vraxil engines with precise fire. Every shot was calculated to cause maximum damage. Commander Paul Stewart's Relentless positioned itself directly between the sanctuary and 3 Vraxil cruisers. The heavy human warship began trading shots with the enemy vessels, absorbing punishment that would have destroyed 2 or 3 normal ships. Its armor glowed red from repeated hits, but it refused to move. Sir, their weapons are not penetrating our armor. Stewart's tactical officer reported with surprise. Good, Stewart replied. Keep firing. Make them regret coming here. The civilian ships began arriving as well. Freighter Captain Vincent Cole brought his modified cargo ship into the fight, its improvised weapon systems firing wildly but effectively. Mining ship captains used their industrial cutting lasers as weapons, slicing into Vraxil hulls. Even Dr. Gregory Fisher's research vessel contributed, using its sensor arrays to jam Vraxil targeting systems. The battle became chaos. Human ships swarmed the Vraxil like angry wasps. They attacked from every angle, coordinating their fire without needing complex orders. Every human captain understood the mission: destroy the Vraxil and protect the Kelrathi. Everything else was just details. One Vraxil cruiser tried to make a final attack run on the sanctuary. Captain Lisa Monroe saw it happening and pushed her destroyer to intercept. The Fury positioned itself directly in the path of the enemy ship. What are you doing? Her first officer asked in shock. We cannot survive a head-on collision with a cruiser. We do not need to survive it, Lisa replied calmly. We just need to stop them. But before the collision could happen, 3 human freighters appeared and opened fire on the Vraxil cruiser from different angles. Their combined weapons fire crippled the enemy ship's engines, sending it spinning off course. Lisa smiled. Never mind. Looks like we have help. On the Thunderchild, Admiral Phillips watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. The Vraxil were falling apart. They were used to fighting species that followed predictable patterns. They were used to enemies that valued their own survival more than victory. They had never fought an enemy that simply refused to lose. Admiral, 4 Vraxil ships are trying to escape, her tactical officer reported. Do not let them, Karen ordered. Chase them down. I want the galaxy to know what happens when you attack humanity's friends. 3 human destroyers broke formation and pursued the fleeing Vraxil vessels. The chase did not last long. The human ships were faster and more determined. One by one, the Vraxil ships were caught and destroyed. Back at the sanctuary, the remaining Vraxil ships were fighting desperately now. They had gone from confident raiders to terrified victims in just a few minutes. They were trying to retreat, trying to escape, but the human ships surrounded them like wolves surrounding prey. Jake Morrison watched as another Vraxil warship exploded under combined fire from 3 human vessels. Amy, open a channel to all Vraxil ships. Channel open, sir. Jake's voice went out across the battlefield, cold and hard. Vraxil vessels, this is Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Ship Valiant. You attacked our friends. You hurt innocent people. Now you face the consequences. You can surrender or you can die. Choose quickly. For a moment there was silence. Then one Vraxil ship transmitted a surrender signal. Then another. Then 2 more. Admiral Phillips, we have 4 Vraxil ships surrendering, Jake reported. Accept their surrender, Karen replied. Disable their weapons and engines. We will collect them after we secure the sanctuary. The last Vraxil ships that refused to surrender were destroyed within minutes. The battle was over. The space around the sanctuary was filled with debris and the wreckage of Vraxil vessels. Of the 15 raiders that had attacked the colony ship, 4 had surrendered and 11 had been destroyed. Not a single human ship had been lost, though several were badly damaged. Jake immediately turned his attention to the Kelrathi. Amy, raise the sanctuary. Find out their status. There was a long pause. Jake felt his heart pounding. They had arrived in time to save the ship from the Vraxil, but had they arrived in time to save the people inside? Then Amy's face broke into a smile. Captain, I have them. The emergency shelter's held. Everyone is alive. They are low on air and need immediate help, but they are alive. Jake felt relief wash over him. He had pushed his ship to the breaking point, risked his crew, and fought a desperate battle. And it had worked. The Kelrathi were alive. Send repair and medical teams to the sanctuary immediately, Jake ordered. Get those people air and medical attention. And someone find out if their ship can be saved or if we need to evacuate them. All around the sanctuary, human ships moved into position to help. Engineers transferred to the damaged colony ship to repair life support systems. Medical teams prepared to treat wounded Kelrathi. Supply ships began moving air tanks and emergency equipment. Admiral Phillips opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Phillips to all human vessels. You did well today. You answered the call when friends needed help. You fought with courage and determination. You proved what humanity stands for. Be proud of what you accomplished here. Phillips out. On the bridge of the Valiant, Jake Morrison sat back in his chair and allowed himself to feel tired for the first time in 18 hours. His ship was damaged. His engines were probably ruined. His chief engineer was going to yell at him for days about what he had done to the Valiant. But the Kelrathi were alive. That was all that mattered. 3 days after the battle, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of Gateway Station, watching as the Kelrathi colony ship Sanctuary was carefully guided into one of the massive docking bays. The ship still showed the terrible damage it had suffered. Huge sections of hull were missing or torn apart. Repair crews swarmed over it like insects, working to make it safe for the long-term repairs that would be needed. But the ship was intact. More importantly, the 3,000 Kelrathi civilians inside were safe. They were alive because humanity had answered their call for help. Admiral Karen Phillips walked up beside Jake, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to him without saying anything. For a moment, they both just watched the activity outside the window. The Galactic Council sent another message, Karen finally said. They are demanding we appear before them to explain our unauthorized military action in neutral space. Jake took a drink of his coffee. Let them demand. What are they going to do? Sanction us? The same council that sat and did nothing while the Kelrathi were dying? That is basically what I told them, Karen replied with a slight smile. Though I used more diplomatic language. Barely. The door to the observation deck opened and a group of Kelrathi entered. They were led by Ambassador Kelnor, whose blue-green skin seemed paler than usual, probably from the stress of the last few days. Despite everything he had been through, the ambassador walked with dignity and purpose. Captain Morrison, Admiral Phillips, Kelnor said, his voice carrying the musical quality that all Kelrathi voices had. I hope we are not interrupting. Not at all, Ambassador, Jake replied. How are your people doing? They are recovering. Your medical teams have been incredible. They have worked without rest to help our injured. Your engineers have restored life support throughout the ship. We owe you everything, Jake shook his head. You do not owe us anything. You stood up for humanity when we needed friends. This is what friends do for each other. Kelnor's large eyes seemed to shimmer with emotion. The Galactic Council is calling for sanctions against your species. They say you violated numerous laws and treaties by bringing so many warships into the Outer Rim without permission. Let them try, Karen said firmly. We would do the same thing again if we had to. I know you would, Kelnor replied. And that is why I came here to tell you something that the Council does not want you to know. In the 3 days since the Battle of Sanctuary, 17 different species have sent private messages to Earth. They want to establish formal alliances with humanity, completely separate from the Galactic Council. Jake and Karen exchanged surprised looks. That was significant news, Kelnor continued. For too long, the Council has been controlled by species that evolved on peaceful worlds. They see the galaxy through the lens of endless diplomacy and compromise. But many species understand that sometimes the only answer to violence is strength. Your actions at Sanctuary showed them that humanity, despite being classified as a Deathworlder species, can be trusted to do what is right. You did not come to conquer or take territory. You came to help, friends. That means something. Karen set down her coffee cup. What are you saying, Ambassador? I am saying that the Kelrathi government has voted to formally withdraw from the Galactic Council. We are establishing a direct alliance with Earth instead, and we will not be alone. Within the next month, dozens of other species will likely follow our example. Jake felt the weight of what Kelnor was saying. The galactic political landscape was about to change completely. The Council is not going to like that. No, they will not, Kelnor agreed. But what can they do? They failed to protect us when we needed help. You succeeded. Actions speak louder than words, as humans say. The Council can pass all the resolutions they want. It will not change the fact that humanity proved themselves to be reliable allies, while the Council proved themselves to be useless. Over the following days and weeks, the situation developed exactly as Kelnor had predicted. The Kelrathi formally withdrew from the Galactic Council and signed a mutual defense treaty with Earth. The Dranis species, who were herbivorous traders that had suffered from pirate attacks for years, followed suit. The Yelthor, a species of aquatic beings who had been trying to get Council help with territorial disputes, also joined the new alliance. More species continued to join. Some were small civilizations that had been ignored by the larger Council powers. Others were significant players who were tired of council bureaucracy. Each one cited the same reason. Humanity had proven that they valued loyalty and friendship more than political convenience. The Vraxil raiders, meanwhile, learned a harsh lesson. Word spread quickly through pirate channels about what had happened at Sanctuary. Humans had mobilized nearly 40 warships in less than a day to help their allies. They had fought with savage determination and had destroyed 11 Vraxil vessels without losing a single ship. The message was clear. Attack humanity's friends and humanity would bring overwhelming force down on you. Vraxil raiders began avoiding any system where humans or their allies had a presence. Other pirate groups followed suit. The space lanes that had been dangerous for years suddenly became much safer, simply because no one wanted to risk provoking a human response. Captain Jake Morrison returned to the Valiant, which was undergoing major repairs. Chief Engineer Danny Price had indeed yelled at him for 3 hours straight about what the high-speed journey had done to the engines. But even while yelling, Danny had been smiling. He understood why it had been necessary. The ship would be in dock for at least 2 months while entire sections were rebuilt. The engines needed to be completely replaced. But it was worth it. Every crew member knew they had done something important. One evening, Jake received a communication request from the Sanctuary. He accepted it and saw the face of a young Kelrathi female appear on his screen. She looked nervous but determined. "Captain Morrison, my name is Tella. I was on the Sanctuary during the attack. I wanted to thank you personally. My family was in one of the emergency shelters. We heard your voice over the communication system, telling us that help was coming. We did not believe anyone would arrive in time. But you did. You saved us." Jake felt emotion tighten his throat. "I'm glad we made it in time, Tella. Take care of yourself and your family." "I will. And, Captain, I am studying to become a pilot. When I finish my training, I want to serve on a human ship. I want to help protect others the way you protected us." After the communication ended, Jake sat quietly in his quarters, thinking about everything that had happened. The Battle of Sanctuary had started as a desperate rescue mission. It had become something much larger. It had changed the political structure of the galaxy. It had shown everyone what humanity valued most. A year ago, most alien species had been afraid of humans. They had worried that humanity's aggressive nature and Deathworlder strength would make them dangerous. They had tried to limit where humans could go and what humans could do. Now dozens of species wanted to ally with humanity. They understood that human strength was not something to fear, but something to rely on. They understood that humans made loyal friends who would stand beside you when times were hard. Admiral Karen Phillips sent out new orders to the fleet. Human ships would now regularly patrol space lanes used by allied species. They would respond to any distress calls from their new partners. They would show the galaxy that the alliance humanity was building was based on mutual protection and shared values. The Galactic Council tried to adapt to the new reality. They passed resolutions condemning human actions. They threatened economic sanctions. But their words had no power. Too many species had already chosen to align with Earth instead. The council that had once dominated galactic politics was discovering that they were no longer the only option. Jake Morrison stood once again in the observation deck of Gateway Station, watching the ships of many species arrive and depart. There were Kelrathi vessels with their elegant curved designs, Dranis freighters with their distinctive multiple engine pods, Yelthor ships that looked like underwater creatures because they were designed to operate in liquid environments. Commander Ben Hayes joined him at the window. "It is amazing how much has changed, sir. A few weeks ago we were just another species trying to find our place in the galaxy. Now we are building an alliance that might be more powerful than the Council itself." "We did not set out to build an alliance," Jake replied. "We just answered a call for help from friends. Sometimes the best things happen when you are not trying to make them happen. You just do what is right and everything else follows." Jake nodded. That was exactly correct. Humanity had not come to Sanctuary to make political statements or gain power. They had come because the Kelrathi needed help, and humans did not abandon their friends. Everything else had grown from that simple act of loyalty. The distress signal from the Sanctuary had been answered. In answering it, humanity had shown the galaxy what it meant to be true friends. They had proven that being a Deathworlder species did not make them monsters. It made them the kind of ally you wanted beside you when things went wrong. In the weeks and months that followed, the alliance continued to grow. Human ships and ships from allied species began conducting joint patrols. They shared technology and knowledge,